Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between two Golgari Core Set 2020 sealed decks and the Battle of the Horde challenge deck from Born of the Gods. We'll be playing this in two games, first on normal difficulty and then on hard mode. We'll be using 3 hero cards for these games. We have the Harvester, which says tap, draw a card, then discard a card. The Vanquisher, which says your starting hand size is increased by 1, your maximum hand size is increased by 1. And the Explorer, which says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. We'll go ahead and get started with 8 cards apiece. Black draws a Cavalier of Night, a Forest, a Gravedigger, a Swamp, a Forest, a Swamp, a Soul Salvage, and a Thicket Crasher. It's a little bit of a slow hand, but I think we still have to keep it. Green draws a Swamp, a Gorging Vulture, Cavalier of Thorns, Swamp, Murder, Swamp, Moldavine Reclamation, and Swamp. This is a bit of a slow hand, but I think we're going to keep this one as well. Go ahead and get started by playing a Swamp and a Forest over here. We'll play 2 Swamps over here, and then we're going to end the first turn with the Harvester. Black will draw a Silverback Shaman and will discard the Soul Salvage. Green will draw a Forest and we will discard a Murder, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. Black draws a Gorging Vulture. Green draws a Rabid Bite. Go ahead and play a Swamp and a Forest over here, and a Forest and a Swamp over here. And then we have the mana to start casting creatures, so that's what we'll do. Black will tap 4, and we'll play the Thicket Crasher. This is a 4/3 Elemental Rhino with Trample, and other elementals you control have Trample. Green will tap 3 black and cast the Gorging Vulture. This is a 2/2 bird with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You gain 1 life for each creature put into your graveyard this way. We'll take the top 4 and put them into the graveyard. We have a Swamp, a Fathomly Cutthroat, Yarax Fenlurker, and Swamp. That will give us 2 life to go up to 22. And then we will end the turn by using the Harvester yet again. Black draws a Swamp and will discard a Gorging Vulture. Green draws a Leafkin Druid and we will discard the Rabid Bite. We will untap. And this will be our final turn before the Horde attacks. Black draws a Audacious Thief. Green draws a Gravedigger. Green will play a Swamp. Black will play a Swamp. We will go ahead and attack with the Thicket Crasher and the Gorging Vulture for 6 damage. And then Black will cast the Cavalier of Night. This is a 4/3 Elemental Knight with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. We'll decline to do that. When Cavalier of Night dies, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Green will tap 5 mana and cast the Moldavine Reclamation. This is an enchantment. It says whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw 1 card. And then we'll pass to the Horde, which will cast the top 3 cards from its deck. The Horde will cast a Minotaur Younghorn. This is a 2/2 Minotaur with haste and it attacks each turn if able. It casts a Massacre Totem. It's an artifact that at the beginning of the Horde's pre-combat main phase, reveal an additional card from the top of the Horde's library. The Horde casts that card, and when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into its graveyard. And finally, we'll cast another Minotaur Younghorn. These 2 Younghorns will attack, one of which will run into the Cavalier of Night and die. The other one will do 2 damage, but the Cavalier of Night will gain 4 from its lifelink, so we'll actually go up a total of 2 to go up to 24. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black draws a Blood Burglar and will discard the Blood Burglar. Green draws a Forest and we will discard a Leafkin Druid. And then we'll untap. Black draws a Forest. Green draws a Sedge Scorpion. Green will play a Forest. Black will play a Forest. I think we will just straight up attack with everybody for a combined total of 10 damage. We have a Refreshing Elixir. It says when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player gains 5 life. There are 2 players, so we'll gain 10 life to go up to 34. Then we have a Plundered Statue. It says when it is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. So we'll draw a card each. Black will draw a Agonizing Siphon. Green will draw a forest. We'll play the forest as our second land for the turn. And then we will gain 4 life from the Cavalier of Night to go up to 18. Green will tap 5 mana and cast Cavalier of Thorns. This is a 5/6 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your graveyard. When it dies, you may exile it. If you do, put a target card from your graveyard on top of your library. We'll reveal the top 5 cards. These are the 5 cards. We will take the forest and we'll put it onto the battlefield. And then we'll put the rest into the graveyard. We'll tap the forest and we'll play a Sedge Scorpion as well. Black will tap out, cast a Silverback Shaman. This is a 5/4 Ape Shaman with Trample, and when it dies, draw a card. And then we will pass to the Horde. The Horde will untap, and they'll cast the top 4 cards. The first one is a Phobos Reaver. It's a 2/3 Minotaur with haste, and it attacks each turn if able. A Refreshing Elixir. It has the same text as Master Cryptonym, so we'll cast 5 cards the next turn. A Phobos Reaver. And a Intervention of Kuranos. At the beginning of combat this turn, Intervention of Kuranos deals 3 damage to each creature. So, 3 damage will happen, and the Horde will lose all of their creatures. Black will take damage to each of its creatures. Only the Thicket Crasher will die. Green will take damage to each of its creatures. The Gorging Vulture and the Sedge Scorpion will both die. Because of the Moldavine Reclamation, we'll gain 2 life from that. We'll go up to 40. And then Green will draw 2 cards. The first is a Nightpack Ambusher. The second is a Silverback Shaman. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black will draw a Leafkin Druid and discard the Leafkin Druid. Green will draw a Woodland Champion, and we will discard the Woodland Champion. Then we'll untap. Black will draw a Manifold Key. Green will draw an Evolving Wilds. We'll play the Evolving Wilds, and we will just go straight on the attack right now. Green will attack with the Cavalier. Black will attack with the Cavalier and the Silverback Shaman for a total of 14 damage. Here's a Vitality Salve. It says when Vitality Salve is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. Black will choose to return the Thicket Crasher to the battlefield. Green will return the Barkhide Troll to the battlefield. This is a 2/2 Troll, and it enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counter on it. You can pay 1, remove a +1/+1 counter to give it hexproof until end of turn. And then we will go to our main phase, and Black will tap 3 mana and play the Audacious Thief. This is a 2/2 Human Rogue. When it attacks, draw a card and lose a life. Green will tap and sack the Evolving Wilds to get another land and put it into the battlefield tapped. We'll take a forest. We'll shuffle the tiny deck that's left. We also gained 4 life from the Cavalier, taking us up to 44. And then Green will spend 4 mana, and we'll cast the Nightpack Ambusher. We'll spend another 4 mana to cast the Gravedigger. But the Nightpack Ambusher is a 4/4 wolf with flash. Other wolves and werewolves you control get +1/+1 at the beginning of your end step. If you didn't cast a spell this turn, create a 2/2 green wolf token. And Gravedigger is a 2/2 zombie. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We'll take the Woodland Champion and put that back in our hand. And then we will pass to the Horde. The Horde will cast the top 5 cards. We have a Reckless Minotaur. It's a 4/1 Minotaur with haste. It attacks each turn if able, and at the beginning of the end step, destroy Reckless Minotaur. We will cast an Altar of Mogus, which has the same text as the other artifacts. We will cast a Plundered Statue, which has the same text as the other artifacts. We will cast a Minotaur Goreseeker, and we will cast a Minotaur Younghorn. The Goreseeker is a 3/2 Minotaur with haste and attacks each turn if able. These Minotaurs will all attack. And we will block the Goreseeker with the Nightpack Ambusher, the Younghorn with the Thicket Crasher, and we will just let the Reckless Minotaur through to deal 4 damage to take us back down to 40. All the Minotaurs will die. And then at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black draws a Growth Cycle. We will discard the Manifold Key. Green draws a Forest, and we will discard the Forest. And then we will untap. Black draws a swamp. Green draws a ferocious pup. We will play the swamp, and then we'll just attack with everybody. For a total of 29 damage, the Audacious Thief will trigger and will lose 1 life to go to 19. And black will draw a swamp, and then we'll deal 29 damage. And that will empty out the deck, and the Core Set 2020 sealed decks will defeat the Horde in normal difficulty. We'll be right back for hard mode. It's time for hard mode. We'll only have 2 turns before the Horde attacks. We'll get drawing 8 cards apiece. Black draws an Epicure of Blood, a Forest, a Swamp, a Meteor Golem, a Cavalier of Night, a Forest, a Gorging Vulture, and a Blood Burglar. This is an okay hand. We will keep it. Green draws a Swamp, a Moldavine Reclamation, a Rabid Bite, a Moldavine Reclamation, a Thicket Crasher, a Nightpack Ambusher, a Yarok's Fenlurker, and a Blade Brand. I think a 1-lander is a no-keep, especially with so many expensive cards in the hand. So we are going to use our free mulligan because it's multiplayer, and we will draw a new 8. Green draws an Evolving Wilds, a Forest, a Barkhide Troll, a Gravedigger, a Swamp, a Blade Brand, a Rabid Bite, and a Ferocious Pup. I think this is an acceptable first hand, even if it's not an exceptional first hand. We'll go ahead and get started right away by playing a Swamp and a Forest over here, as well as a Forest and an Evolving Wilds. We'll immediately crack the Evolving Wilds, which is a land that says tap, sacrifice Evolving Wild, search your library for a basic card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, and then shuffle your library. So we'll tap and sacrifice it. We'll go ahead and get a Forest. We'll go onto the battlefield tapped. We're going to shuffle. And then black will tap both of these and we'll cast the Blood Burglar, which is a 2/2 Vampire Rogue. As long as it's your turn, Blood Burglar has a lifelink. It has the lifelink for now. Not that it's going to matter. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black will draw a Silverback Shaman and we will discard the Meteor Golem. Green will draw a Forest and we will discard Blade Brand. And then we'll untap. Black draws an Audacious Thief. Green draws a Swamp. We'll play the 2 Swamps over here. And we'll play the 1 Forest over here. Black will tap 3 mana and we will cast the Audacious Thief. It's the 2/2 Human Rogue. When it attacks, you draw a card and lose a life. Green will tap 2 mana and we'll play a Ferocious Pup. The pup is a 0/1 wolf, but when it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Here's our token. And then we'll go to combat. We'll attack with the Blood Burglar. We'll gain 2 life to go up to 22. And then it will be the Horde's turn. The Horde will cast the top 3 spells. The first one is a Refreshing Elixir. At the beginning of the Horde's pre-combat main phase, reveal an additional card from the top of the Horde's library. The Horde casts that card. They'll also cast a Minotaur Goreseeker and a Descend Upon the Prey. It's a sorcery. When it attacks this turn, it gains first strike until end of turn and must be blocked this turn if able. The Minotaur Goreseeker will attack. It must be blocked, so we'll sacrifice the Ferocious Pup to it. And then we'll take no damage. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black will draw a Swamp, and we will discard the Epicure of Blood. Green will draw a Cavalier of Thorns, and we will discard the Rabid Bite. And then we'll untap. Green will draw a Yarok's Fenlurker. Black will draw a Swamp. We'll play both of the Swamps over here. And we'll play the Forest over here. We'll go to attack and we'll attack with the entire team. This will trigger the Audacious Thief to make us lose a life to go to 21, but we'll draw a card, which will be the Agonizing Siphon. And then that will do a total of 6 damage. We'll gain 2 life from the Blood Burglar to go back up to 23. And then we will cast 2 spells. Black will cast the Cavalier of Night. We're not going to use the sacrifice effect in this particular case. Green will tap out and we'll cast the Cavalier of Thorns. These are the 5 cards. We will take the Forest and we'll put it on the battlefield, and then the rest of these will go into the graveyard. And then we will pass the turn to the Horde, which will untap, and then we'll cast the top 4 cards. We have a Phobos Reaver, a Minotaur Younghorn, a Touch of the Horn God. Whenever a Minotaur attacks its turn, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. And a Altar of Mogus, which has the same effect as Refreshing Elixir. These 3 will attack. I think we're just going to take the damage and go down to 16, and then we will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Black draws a Nightpack Ambusher, and we will discard the Agonizing Siphon. Green draws a Leaf Kindred, and we will discard the Yarok's Fenlurker. Then we'll untap. Black will draw a Forest. Green will draw a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We'll play the Forest. And then we will go to combat, and we will attack with the entire team. As we attack, we'll lose 1 life, and Black will draw a card, which will be a Swamp. That will do a total of 15 damage with 7 lifelink, bringing us back to 22. We got a Plundered Statue. It says when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. Black draws a Forest, green draws an Epicure of Blood. And a Vitality Salve. It says when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. Black has a Meteor Golem and an Epicure of Blood. Go ahead and return the Meteor Golem. It is a 3/3 artifact golem. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Go ahead and destroy the Altar of Mogus, and when it is put into a graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. We'll sacrifice the Phobos Reaver and the Minotaur Goreseeker. Green will take the Thicket Crasher and put that back onto the battlefield. Black can play a second land this turn, and that will be a Forest. We'll tap 3 mana and play the Gorging Vulture. This is a Forest on Audacious Thief, a growth cycle on a Swamp. We'll gain 1 life to go up to 23. Black will spend 5 and cast the Epicure of Blood. That's a 4/4 vampire. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And then we'll tap the 2 Forests and cast the Barkhide Troll. I think that's a +1/+1 counter. And then we are going to pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap and will cast the top 4 cards again. This is a Minotaur Younghorn, a Phobos Reaver, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Minotaur Younghorn. All of these will attack. The Phobos Reaver will run into the Meteor Golem. The Minotaur Younghorn will run into a Thicket Crasher. Another one will run into the Epicure of Blood, and another one will run into the Barkhide Troll. And so that will kill 1 Phobos Reaver and 3 Minotaur Younghorns. We'll take 2 damage and go down to 21. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Black draws a Swamp. We'll discard the Swamp. Green draws a Forest. We will discard the Forest. We'll also flash in the Nightpack Ambusher over here. We should have blocked the Minotaur Younghorn with that, but that's life. We will end the turn, and we will untap. Black will draw a Swamp. Green will draw a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. And another Swamp. And then we will go on the attack and attack with everybody. We'll lose a life to go down to 20. We'll draw a card, which is a Soul Salvage. And then the Horde will take 35 damage and will gain 7 life to go up to 27. That will also cause the Epicure of Blood to trigger, and they'll take another damage to take 36 damage. And that will empty out their library. There's a Massacre Totem. It says when it is put into a graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into its graveyard. That can't happen, there's no library left. Refreshing Elixir, that'll take us up to 37. Plundered Statue, each player will draw a card. Black draws a Swamp. Green draws a Nightpack Ambusher. Now we have to pass. Black will not cast anything. Green will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap. And then Black will get a Wolf at the end of the last turn from the Nightpack Ambusher. And then the Horde will attack, and we will go ahead and run that into the Wolf, and the Minotaur Younghorn will die. And the Core Set 2020 Seal Decks will defeat the Horde fairly easily. Let me know what your thoughts were about these games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can hit subscribe. We'll be taking these 2 decks up against the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey into Nyx next. Until then, this is Refresh, and thanks for watching.